We are live. We are live. Hey, everybody. Happy Saturday morning. This is our live with Ashley DeLuca that had to get moved because we were having floors put in on Tuesday and the noise was unbelievable. So now we're down to just background noise from dogs if they start to bark instead of all the pounding and hammering and sawing. And thank you, Ashley, so much for agreeing to reschedule this. So I am thrilled to introduce, with amazing background in email marketing, Ashley DeLuca, because when I talked to her, some of the things that just came out of her mouth, and I was like scribbling like a mad person. And I have my notebook all ready today because I know there are going to be a bunch of gems that she drops. And then on top of everything, I found out she loves guacamole. Ashley,
Mhm.
welcome to our Snack and Learn Facebook Live in Profit Concierge. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Very good. It's a sunny day on top of about 7 or 8 inches of snow here where we are. So it's a pretty winter day going into Christmas week.
Oh my gosh, I seriously believe it. I'm here located in Ohio,
Uh-huh.
and it's very similar. We don't have 7 to 8 inches. It's actually starting to melt. But I'm like, for me, I'm just like, can we just please schedule snow on Christmas and the other days? That's really
I
fine.
love that. We're actually supposed to get some flurries on Christmas. I was excited to hear.
Super jealous. I haven't
I
even looked at the
know.
weather yet.
We'll see. Well, I think this storm might have come through you guys before it got to us, if I remember correctly. Sorry, I got
That
a
would
little.
totally make sense.
But I am thrilled because email marketing has been my Achilles heel, and my biggest issues have been consistency. And I
Yep.
am just really fascinated to kind of hear from you on this topic. And like I said, what I would actually love to do is just take notes furiously and let you loose on our Facebook Live. Are you good with that?
100%, totally. I'm here to drop all the gold. So, consistency is something that a lot of people struggle with. And I feel like it's not even just within email marketing, but also in business as well too. And let me let you guys in on a little secret. It's not really a secret, but consistency is so incredibly important. When I started to go through the process of becoming more consistent in my business, and not necessarily doing more of the things, but just doing what I needed to do every single day, not only did it cut my calendar in half in terms of like what I was actually doing, but then also too, it has created such more so like those quantum leaps, those things where you're just like, holy guacamole, like things are making big moves. Like it's all inconsistency. So within email marketing, a lot of times we get stuck in a couple of different spots, right? Depending on where you're at in your journey. You're like, oh my gosh, the tech's overwhelming. You're like, oh no, no, I'm on the flip side. Like I got the tech figured out, but I'm like super confused on like what to even write about in my campaigns. Like how do you create campaigns that actually convert? But it's really interesting because the money is not just in the front end of email marketing, it's also in the back end of email marketing as well too. And when you really think about where it all comes into play, a lot of times, people are just like, all you need to do is set up these 5 emails, or you need to set up this 7 email sequence. And, I've done that, right? Like I have gone through the process of writing, I don't even know how many welcome sequences, how many sales
Yep.
sequences, like all the things. And guys, it's not just the emails. And it's more so also too, there's a deeper level of email marketing where, a lot of people kind of talk about it, but they're not really. So I wanted to share this with you guys today specifically because this is something that I was scribbling down in my notebook last night and I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. So here's my kind of philosophy here is that within email marketing, I believe that it can be simplified, but more so really focused on going through the process of simplifying the back end to make it automated to be able to then amplify relationships and sales, maximize those touch points with your ideal clients. So how do you do that? So really what it looks like is it's kind of like a ecosystem within somebody coming on through and then being able to then have temperature checks where, like obviously with like COVID and all the things, everyone's used to getting their temperature checked. Well, we're going to start checking your subscribers' temperature at this point. We're going to start going through and taking a look and seeing, okay, is Sally Sue cold, warm, or hot? At any time, you should be able to see at what point in the journey they're at and what their temperature is based off of where you're going through. So this is by doing this, it does two things. The first thing it does is it gives you a very clear idea of the health of your email list, right? In terms of with like, okay, is my list healthy? or is it unhealthy? Like if you have a list that is, 75% cold, I would say you probably have a pretty unhealthy list, right? But if you have it on the flip side where you're like, oh my gosh, 75% of my audience is either warm or hot, you're perfect, right? So within this, we're going to start going through and not just put emails into your back end. You're going to actually go through the process of taking their temperature at every step. So here's what this looks like. So within this, you have like a welcome sequence, which, you have your 5 emails. And within those 5 emails, generally speaking, you have links that they're going to take additional steps to. So what you can do is that if somebody goes through my welcome sequence and they don't click on anything, like if they go through and not a single nada, like they didn't click a single link in any of the things, any of my call to actions, they're probably not feeling either me or they're probably just like not my right person. So essentially what you would do is that anybody who clicks on the link, they're going to get tagged as warm, right? They're going to get tagged as a warm person because they've already gone through your welcome sequence. They've engaged with your welcome sequence. Warm. Awesome. Great. Sounds awesome. But then anybody who doesn't, you're going to drop them off and put them in the cold bucket. And what happens is that basically your audience is going to split into 2, right? And it might be a little shocking at first where you're just going to be like, oh my gosh, more people are going into my cold bucket than my warm bucket. And that's totally okay. A lot of times we think that we want more warm people in our warm bucket, but really at the end of the day,
We want the right people.
Exactly. 100%.
Got it.
Yeah. So
I would be that panicker, right? I would be that, oh my God, I'm losing them. I need to change my message. What you're saying here is really important is no, don't change your message because you've got this set of people who are resonating with it and that's who you want.
Exactly. 100%.
Okay. I love that perspective.
100%. Now, the other piece that this does is that right away, and this is something that so many people wait to do later on within their email marketing is they wait to segment. They wait to find out who these people are. They wait to be able to find out their perfect lead. And what ends up happening is they're building these massive email marketing accounts with all these people, but all they're doing is collecting email addresses. They're not collecting they're not really kind of gathering the right community of people who are actually engaged with their audience. So this is why people's open rate is like super terrible. This is why people's click rate is super terrible because they have so many of the wrong people in their email marketing account. Yeah. And this is something that I have done too. Like this is things like the number one thing that I always tell people is that like I've already made the mistake. So like I'm here to share like not to do. And so what you're going to end up doing is that those cold people, we're not going to give up on them just yet, right? So we're going to take them and put them into a small re-engagement sequence where we're just like, we check in with them, right? Like, because what ends up happening again is like we wait until they're like 90 days in our email marketing. We're sending all these emails, we're flooding their inbox. But I honestly want to know from the get-go, like, hey, you're either interested in what I have to say or you're not. Because again, we're paying for these email marketing. Like we're paying for these massive email marketing accounts with all these emails. Why are you paying for sitting ducks? I mean, like I even asked myself that same question last night. I was like, why am I paying for these people just to set my emails and like not open them, right? Like, no, like goodbye.
I love that.
One pro tip that I found out, and I am not super techie in Facebook ads, so like, I don't know, but I found this out. Make sure that instead of deleting your subscribers from your email marketing account, make sure you export them into a spreadsheet and keep them because they've already given you consent. And since they haven't unsubscribed, you still have consent to reach out to them. So what you can do is if you ever decide to do any kind of cold marketing, you could use those again, because you've already have their consent. But then also too, you can use them for Facebook ad retargeting as well. So don't delete your subscribers, just export them and keep a hold of them because what that's going to do is that's going to give you additional ammo for in the future.
I love that. Great.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so that's like the re-engagement portion, right? So if they go cold, you're going to put them in a re-engagement sequence basically right away to re-engage them and not wait 90 days in order to do that. So that way we can try to keep them on the front end, right? Because like a lot of times for me, they come in through my Facebook group. A lot of my clients have Facebook groups and that's how they collect leads. So they're still getting like notifications within Facebook and all the things. So like I'm just trying to capture them up front. And then if they engage in my cold, or if they re-engage with that re-engagement sequence, then they'll get popped over into the warm side. So for your warm people, what you want to do is you want to put them into a warm sequence, which essentially is going to be more so, it's commonly called a nurture sequence. But essentially what you're going to do is you're going to focus on really painting the picture. So this is something that I actually wrote about last night in terms of with like, okay, if we were to like write this sequence, what is like the easiest way? Because so often we get stuck in like all these formulas, all these different things where we're just like, you need to do this, then you need to do that. I'm like, okay, hold on. Like, how can we make this like super simple?
Simple. That's what I love about
Simple.
this. It's
Yes.
simple.
All the simplicity. So essentially what it would look like is they would be emails that are really designed to tell a story. The thing is that storytelling is your most profitable way to be able to share with your audience within email marketing. So really focusing on sharing a story and then calling out what they're currently doing. You know, a lot of times we kind of get off the edge of like, I don't know if I really want to call them out. And I'm like, okay, you're not being the mean girl. Like I totally promise. Like you're just calling it as it is, right? In terms of what their thoughts. So a lot of times this looks like for me is I'm like, you currently believe that email marketing is not easy, right? Like that's a thought that
Yep.
people have. So like if you're doing health coaching, you could be like, yeah, you think that you can't lose those extra 5 pounds. Yeah, someone actually probably thinks that, right? Your ideal client.
Yep.
So really diving into their thoughts, telling stories around it, and then really painting that transformation and bringing on around. So often when people tell stories, they only tell stories from the end, right? They talk about the fairy tale portion of it where they're
Yep.
like, this is what this looks like, but nobody relates to that, right? Like if you told me that, you're like, oh yeah, Ashley, you could definitely lose those 5 pounds. Like I'd be like, okay, yeah, no, like I don't believe that's possible. So
Right.
you have to paint the starting point, the middle point, and the end point for me. So the starting point is going to be where your ideal client is right now in their struggles, in their in terms.
Oops, hang on. We lost your mic there. Can you hear me?
And essentially
There
like,
you go.
okay,
Can
oh,
you
I'm
hear
back.
me?
Okay.
Your mic's
Yeah.
bouncing in and out. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Do that last sentence again.
Yeah. So essentially, what would end up happening is you have the front end, right? So within the story, you have to start with where they're at right now. What is that pain point? What is that one thing that is like really kind of like holding them back within that belief or that thought? And then you're going to move into the middle piece. The middle piece is you, right? You are going to be the bridge that helps them go from point A to point B. So you use the bridge in order to be able to like take them across, and then the transformation, that's the results that you provide, right? So that's where you are able to then link in your offer, and it's not sleazy or spammy or anything like that, because you've already painted the picture of like, Sally, you're right here. This is what you're struggling with. Maybe like if you're a marketing coach, you're like, man, like, you're making all these Instagram posts and they're just not converting. You're like struggling with the hashtags and the captions and all the things. And so I'll help you walk you through the process. Like I'm going to help you set up your next 30 days of posts that are optimized for your ideal client or whatever, right? And then the transformation is like from those, you're going to get 1 to 2 leads from those posts that we've created. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can see that. Like I can see sitting down with you, creating those Instagram posts, and then in the process, me getting leads from them, right?
Got
So
it.
you have to give them the whole picture. And so that's what you do for 30 days. I recommend usually like 2 to 3 emails a week within that 30-day period. But it's totally up to you. If you're like, no, I just want to email them like once a week, that's totally fine. You play with it. You can start off with once a week and add on. But 30 days, you should focus
Let
on
me ask you
nurturing
a
them.
question
And then
when
if
you
they
do
at
that.
all, like at any time, yeah.
Real quick question. So do you have them tell that story over 3 emails? Do you tell a story within each email? How do you do that so that you have the whole 3 points of that story that you pointed out?
It should be within one email. So the problem is that when people go through and divide the story, a lot of times, especially if you're only emailing them once a week, they're gonna totally forget. They're gonna be like, what? Like, give them the whole story. A lot of times you can just take a piece of that and make it shorter, because a lot of the emails that I write are they're not very super long. They're not blog post length or anything like that. So just keep it really focused on that exact pain point, and don't sell the whole pie, right? Like a lot of times we think that we have to sell all the pain points in one email. Just focus on one pain point at one particular time. So that way, it calls in that particular thing. And that helps you too. Like the thing with email marketing is it'll give you very much so direct guidance on your marketing, because you're going to be able to see, oh my gosh, so many people clicked my book now or booked my call link on this particular email when I told this story with this particular like pain point. And so that's the way that I do it.
I love that. That is so helpful because I'm just going to recap here because you've really given us a path. So you start first thing, don't wait to segment your leads. Segment them right away. If you've got
Hmm.
somebody who
Yep.
doesn't click on anything in your welcome sequence, they go in this cold pile. You do try and
Yep.
retarget them, and you give them and in the retarget process, or not retarget, but re-engage, you do some storytelling on the pain points. If they engage in that series, they bump over to warm. If they don't bump over to warm,
Yep.
then we don't delete them, but we download them and hold them and use
Yep.
them for retargeting. So now we're sitting with a bunch of warm
Yep.
leads. Got it. That's perfect. Okay. I love this. It's
Exactly.
simple when you put it like that.
Yeah.
Wow. And then you
Yeah,
work on your
exactly. So
warm
then,
lead.
yeah.
Love that. And lead them to wherever it is you're trying to lead them.
Yep.
So it sounds to me like you've gotten
Exactly.
here through
100%.
lots of trial and error on your part to
Yeah,
set up. Yeah.
100%. Totally. It's been very interesting. Yeah, especially over the past 3 years. I've done email marketing in so many different capacities, so many different ways of like, okay, so how can we leverage this piece of it or that piece of it? And I'm like, okay, wait a second. Taking the standard roadmap that people create, and I was like, okay, let's move this here, let's move that over here, and just kind of reconstructing that lead journey that people go
Mhm.
through, and like making sure that like, hey, we're not just putting people on the wayside, like we're actually focused on building these relationships and
Mhm.
making sure that we create very intentional touch points to help maximize those sales.
Yeah, I love this. And
Yeah.
from a financial standpoint, I love it because we all know that one of the biggest spends in business is marketing, both from
Yep.
a time and a money standpoint, right? So as a CFO,
Yep.
anything you can do to simplify the ability to use that time and money really makes a difference on our financials. So I really love that's what you've done, and that you started out. The first thing you said I love, and it does apply for us all across all of our businesses, is there are two things that can make your day productive. One is that you're doing little, almost habit-like things every day in your business, just like
Yep.
you would an exercise or a meditation or a prayer or whatever your kind of routine is. And the second is
Hmm.
some sort of tool or mechanism for focusing and just having the next thing to do always sitting there so you don't wander with your time. And that really
Yep.
resonates with me because that's absolutely the difference between a productive day for me and an unproductive day for me. If I finish a task and now I can think what's the next thing I want to do, forget it. It's all over. I'm down the rabbit hole.
100%. Totally. I'm the same exact way, especially with having a 2-year-old. Sometimes it can get really hard to stay like super focused when you have like all the background noise, all the things going on. And so just making sure you're just focusing on what you really need to do to move your business forward. And email marketing can be an easy portion of this because everything that I've explained is something you set up at the back end, and all you do is focus on getting people into that funnel, and the
Yeah.
funnel does the rest of the work for you.
That is beautiful. So let me ask you a question. Two things. One of where can
Yeah.
people find more information from you? Because I'm sure there's plenty more where this came from. And the second is how can people contact you if they're interested in finding out maybe even how to work with you? And I'll put that. I'll
Yeah,
drop that down in
100%.
the
So I have
comments.
a free community. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I would love that. Okay, so you could definitely hop on over into my free Facebook group. It's called Email Marketing Simplified. And you can just hop on over to ashleykdeluca.com/community. And essentially, what'll end up happening is you'll get directed right over to the Facebook group. I have tons of mini series with tons of ways that you can create your welcome sequence, your nerds, like all of the things. It's like they're ready for you to binge watch. And then you can also just reach out to me on Facebook at Ashley DeLuca. I would definitely love to be able to have a conversation with you about your email marketing, where you're at, where you want to go, and all of the good stuff.
All right, tell me again what that website was. AshleyKDeluca.com/community.
Community.
Okay, cool. I will put
Yep.
all three of these in the comments below, folks, because I know I've taken notes that I'm actually going to transcribe because I've scribbled them while I've tried to look at the camera at the same time, which I've not done well. But this was gold, Ashley. Thank you so much for jumping on. Thanks for joining the
Yeah.
Profit Concierge group. We're thrilled to have you. Folks, if you've got questions, fire them away in our community. Join Ashley's community. There's so much about cash flow and marketing that goes together. She and I can help comment on all of that as well. So thank you again. I hope you have a great weekend. And same to everybody out there.
Yes,
Enjoy
you
the
too.
rest of this last weekend before Christmas. And we are going to say goodbye now. Take care.